Hi Capricorn, welcome to May, welcome to your tarot, welcome to your astrology. This is for Capricorn Sun, Moon and Rising. Oh, there's a lot going on this month astrologically. As you know, you've probably already heard Venus is going retrograde on the 13th. We also have your ruler Saturn going retrograde, and we have Jupiter going retrograde as well in your sign. We already have Pluto going retrograde in your sign, so there's a lot of stuff that you need to take in. As well as that, we have the Gemini energy of the Venus retrograde, Mercury entering Gemini, the true node entering Gemini. All to do, of course, with your routines, your day-to-day. And as well as that, we have a full moon in beautiful Scorpio, trine Neptune, but also opposed Mercury in Taurus. So we'll talk about that. Scorpio for you, Capricorn, is of course your wish fulfillment. It is your friendship sector, and we'll get into all that good stuff. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the astrological dice to get a little bit of a feel about what's going on for Capricorn in May. Ooh, we have the 11th house. Makes sense. We're just talking about it. The Scorpio full moon. We have the sign of Pisces. And we also have Mars. Very interesting because Mars actually enters Pisces. Now, isn't that something? And that is your third house of communication. So Mars and Pisces is obviously going to be very significant for you. Giving you a lot of energy, a lot of drive into how you communicate, the things that you want to verbalize, the relationships with your siblings as well. All of that comes into play. The World card, right off the bat, first and foremost, let's talk about Jupiter going retrograde in your sign. So, for many of us, Jupiter in your sign in Capricorn is known as being malefic. It's not the most comfortable place for Jupiter, very opposing energies. And yet, for you, it is creating quite a platform to get what you want. After many years of having Saturn in your sign, Saturn being your ruler, it's now in Aquarius. It will retrograde back into your sign this year. And you will feel the difference in energy of it, for sure. You will definitely feel that some lessons have been learned. But there's one thing that you've just not quite got yet. Be patient with yourself, be patient with the stars. There is something that needs to be closed out, an energy, a behavior, a pattern, a belief, personal to each individual. But for you, Capricorn, Jupiter going retrograde allows you to have a bit of a pause in going after everything what you want. Everything that you want. Taurus season is so good for you. Taurus season has a lot of earth sign energies. Obviously, we have the sun in Taurus. We've just had that new moon in Taurus that takes us to the full moon in Scorpio. All very complementary energies for you, particularly if you are a sun in Capricorn around 17 degrees. You can check that out in your birth chart. Or if you are moon in Capricorn around 17 degrees, again, you can check your birth chart. It is a harmonious full moon for you. And it is probably putting you in touch with some friendships that you've maybe let slide or circumstances have let slide. It is a beautiful time to connect with your friends. It's also a time, maybe, just maybe, that you eclipse out a particular friendship if it is unhealthy or if there has been a lot of arguments, a lot of defenses. The World and the Nine of Wands. Mars entering Pisces takes a lot of pressure off your money. There's the Piscean energy of the High Priestess, and it puts a lot of, for the world in general, people want to approach their problems with a more holistic, a more spiritual perspective. That's where people are putting their energies. People are trying to address their faith in the world, their faith in their circumstances, their faith in spirituality and something bigger, greater than ourselves. And for you, you will be very good at healing through your words. Conversations for you will be very important. Venus retrograding in your sector of routine means that in terms of a love relationship, Six of Swords, 6th house, you really will be able to reevaluate and find new ways of dealing with repetitive problems because they will not go away. And they will be exaggerated during this time. So Venus retrograde is a wonderful time for you, Capricorn, to really get into your daily routine, the things that are no longer working for you, expenditures that are no longer working for you. For a lot of Capricorns, it will be noticing the difference and cutting out that expenditure on coffee. A lot of people are not making the same money choices, and Venus retrograde will continue that. Judgment. You're making some big changes. The full moon in Scorpio wants you to take an inventory of the relationships in your life. What ones feel strained and what ones feel easy. It'll be particularly clear around the full moon on the 7th what your relationship status with people is. And I think you need to know that to progress into the next part of your journey, because Saturn will retrograde back into your sign and you don't want to have to keep learning things the hard way. You can learn from observing other people's problems, your friendships. You can learn from their mistakes, you can learn from their relationships, you can learn from their problems. But I think you need some clarity, particularly financially, on the world around you, I think you need financial clarity. That's what I'm trying to say. I think you need some kind of answers in your life, be it in a relationship with a Pisces, be it in a relationship with a Libra. Justice. Things can seem quite foggy, and they will seem quite foggy during Venus retrograde. It intensifies emotions in love sometimes. It can really unravel old fears and incompatibilities with other people. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily make or break. It will break if it's very, very unhealthy. And if it would ruin you, if it would not help your soul purpose. That's what Venus retrograde takes out. But for most people, particularly you, as where it is occurring is so, for want of a better word, basic. Strength. Venus in retrograde is going to want you to be very patient with the bigger things that you want in love, in money, in status, in wealth, in children, in prestige. 7 of Wands, Queen of Wands, and the Empress. It wants you to be patient, Capricorn. Venus has a way of, when in retrograde, revising and revisiting old ways of doing things, old concepts of beauty, old concepts of handling money, old concepts of love. When all else fails, go back to what you know. Go back to the way you admired adults whenever you were younger. You know, the way that you saw people handle their problems, the way that you saw people handle their money, the ways that you saw them in a way that you admire, the old traditional methods, the old traditional routes. Incorporate love into your day-to-day, into your routine. With Venus retrograde in the 6th house, there is a risk, Capricorn, of you feeling somewhat body dysmorphic. If you don't already suffer from it, there will be little tests of your security. You may have moments where you feel very unappealing in your own self, and this is just not the case. This is just not what you're just not seeing it correctly, because it is Venus retrograde. If you already suffer from body dysmorphia, there's a likelihood that it could flare up. There's a likelihood that old insecurities about your appearance could come around, that kind of teenage feeling where you can feel quite uncomfortable in your own body. It may linger. It is also fleeting, is what I was trying to say, rather than lingering. But Mercury there because Mercury can be quite a trickster, can really play havoc with your mind, and it will make aspects with Mars, and people might wind you up and you might take it, as banter, and you might take it very personally. Just be careful with that. Take a step back, and I'm not saying blame everything on Venus in retrograde, but do take note of it whenever you feel quite triggered or troubled by something that you know in your heart is not true, and you also know it to be superficial and shallow. That is just the way that it's coming up, particularly if you're dealing with a Leo or a Libra, who, bear in mind, Libra will suffer very much for Venus retrograde in terms of the way they see themselves and the way that they see love, because it is just uncomfortable for them. They can feel very rattled by the retrograde motions because they're sensitive to the environment. Libra are very sensitive to the environment. Now, if it is a Libra or a Leo, or a Pisces that comes back around that you really had some uncomfortable feelings about, really didn't trust. If you didn't trust them, I wouldn't trust them now, is what I'm trying to say, in terms of people coming in that have ulterior motives. It's quite possible for the people that return, for you romantically, Capricorn, that maybe, just maybe, they have ulterior motives, particularly in terms of how they view themselves. It's almost like you are a mirror to other people. And a lot of the time, I think with Capricorns, it is not talked about enough that Capricorn can attract a lot of jealousy in people, because you have that natural affinity of moving up in the world and leveling up and replacing the old with better and that kind of thing. And it can attract a lot of jealousy. And I think in your friendships in particular, that could be an issue, especially if it's with a Pisces. Now, in terms of matters of the heart, if you are dealing with a water sign where there are delays, it is likely going to work out the way that you want it to, but it is likely going to work out in Gemini season. If you're dealing with a water sign, I think it's actually looking pretty good. Pretty good. I think the way that that could turn out is very surprisingly good for you. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the surprises. Uranus and the Sun made a conjunction in your love sector. The new moon was in your love sector. Mercury, until the 11th, is in your love sector. So romantically speaking, Capricorn, the first week of the month in particular, there's a lot of potential for romantic surprises. And this is why I think you may be hearing from people you didn't expect to hear from. And I also think that their behaviour could be quite out of character. I think that the people that you love in general could be quite out of character. And I think, as obviously with Uranus in your romantic sector, but also your sector of children, those of you that don't want to be pregnant should be exceptionally careful, because that's just the way it rolls. That's just the way Uranus in the 5th can be. It can throw these unusual swings and roundabouts in your romantic life, in your creative life, in your children's life. Creatively speaking, Capricorn, you have the potential during this time to find an outlet that really channels the frustrations that you have at the minute about career progression, right? The thing about the Libra energy here is that Libra rules your career, and you're having to be really very patient. So be careful with that. Make sure that you are exercising patience and that you're finding outlets to deal with it. Things will begin to pick up again in terms of career. Do not worry about that. Venus retrograde in the 6th can make work feel very mundane. It can make work feel very slow. It can make work feel very jaded and very unappealing, even to the most ambitious of Capricorns. But don't be afraid to say no. Wait, postpone, say no. Do not make any hasty decisions. Things are changing around you. And it's all because your vibration is rising. Everything is changing for a reason. You are being set up for a new path. Venus in retrograde wants you to work through a few issues in terms of your body, the way that you view your body, the way that you treat your body, the way that you treat your routine. A lot of the times you push, and you need to find a way to slow it down. If you're dealing with a fire sign, in particular a Leo, things look pretty interesting. Things look very spicy. If you're dealing with a Scorpio, where you feel like 1 minute you're moving forward and the next minute they're kind of confusing, it'll even out. We'll get more into it in the extended. Capricorn, I love you very much, and I will see you then. Bye, Capricorn.